George W. Headley, born in 1908, was a famous jewelry designer, collector, and socialite. He was well known for his popular collaborations and notable clients. With names like Salvador Dali, Cartier, Douglas Fairbanks, and Joan Crawford, his resume was quite impressive. However, Mr. Headley was probably best known for his exquisite bibelots, and his extravagant collection is still being celebrated today.
You might be wondering, just what is a bibelot? These small, intricate decorative objects could be described as a typical trinket or a knickknack. However, one look inside this museum and you'll see that George Headley's bibelots were anything but ordinary.
Uniquely Lexington, since 1968, the Headley-Whitney Museum has been affiliated with the Smithsonian Institute since 2003 and is a stunning showcase of the jewelry, bibelots, dollhouses, library, rose garden, and shell grotto that belonged to George Headley and his wife, Barbara Whitney.
I'm here with Amy Green, and she's the director and curator at the Headley-Whitney Museum here in Lexington. Thanks for having us out today.
Oh, thanks for coming.
This is really such a beautiful area. I mean, it's so kind of quaintly tucked here in the rolling hills and horse farms. Tell me a little bit about the property.
The museum was founded by George Headley in 1968. It was on his family's farm. He had been designing jewelry for a long time. He designed for some stars out in Hollywood in the 1940s and came back here to Lexington, which is where his family lived. And he'd started to design bibelots as well, and bibelots are small decorative objects without a purpose. And his wife got tired of him bringing people to the house to see his collection, so she said, "Why don't you build a museum?" And so he did. Just yards from the house, he built the building that we're standing in right now. Is the first building on the property for the museum, and added a few more a few years later.
Well, yeah, and the architecture just of the building itself is so unique to the area.
It is. George picked what he liked from different cultures, so we have our nice kind of Asian roof style and our large windows and our different doors and columns, and so he just picked what he liked.
Well, it's beautiful, and it's obviously beautifully decorated. He had that kind of designer knack.
Definitely, definitely. He bought things that he liked and he put them here in the library and elsewhere in the museum.
Well, yeah, tell me about all the components of the museum. It's kind of spread out a little bit.
We are a little bit. The building we're in is the Jewel Room and Library building. It was the first building on the property, and we're standing in the library. And then there's the Shell Grotto, which we are working on restoring as we speak. And then the main museum building is where we house the bibelots and our changing exhibits, which we change exhibits several times a year.
Yeah, that's true. And some of your permanent exhibits, I know you've got the bibelots, which I just feel cool saying that word.
Yes, yeah, we're bringing it back.
That's right. But then also too, the jewelry that he designed, you can see the actual sketches, and some of them are quite elaborate.
Yes, we always have several of his sketches on display, and at times we have more of his sketches on display. And we don't know which pieces were made in many cases, so he did lots of sketches and not everything was made.
Well, and you have the dollhouses too, because
yes.
I guess collectors attract each other, right? Because
yes.
his wife was also a collector.
Yes, his wife was a collector, and the dollhouses were actually his sister-in-law's, and she had those created based on buildings on the Whitney estate here in Lexington, and so we have those as well.
Yeah, they are beautiful. They are quite ornate, and
yes.
I guess everything was very meticulous to scale.
They are very detailed. There are stories in the books in the library of the dollhouses. There's a little diamond ring on one of the tables in the dollhouse. Yes, very detailed.
Well, tell me about the changing exhibits. I mean, how often are you changing those out?
The big gallery changes 2 or 3 times a year. Usually sometime midsummer we switch, and then in kind of around Thanksgiving we have our children's exhibit, our children's art exhibit every year.
Yeah, that's true. You do a lot of things in the community. I know we're going to get to that a little bit later, but yeah, I'm excited to hear about some of those things. Well, good. I want to go on a little bit of a tour. Do you think
Excellent.
We could walk around?
Yeah, let's go see some stuff.
A tour through the Headley-Whitney Museum reveals artistic pieces that range in date from the early 1930s to the late 1970s. You can see incredible examples from Headley's entire breadth of work, as well as pristine and precise miniatures. You'll also find spectacular architecture, dazzling interiors, and gorgeous landscapes. In addition to the remarkable personal collections of George Headley and his wife Barbara, the museum also offers a rotating selection of compelling exhibits. The current Bending Light exhibit features vibrant work and explores the manipulation of light through glass.
I'm here with Stephen Rolfe Powell, and he is a glassmaker and really quite an artist as I look around this room. Tell me about this exhibit.
Well, this is really my first museum exhibit in the Lexington area, or near central Kentucky, where of course I'm from down in Danville, and they approached me to do this exhibition, and it's really fun to have my work in my backyard, so to speak. So it represents pretty much all phases of my career, with the teasers, wackos, echoes, and so it's got a little bit of everything.
Well, and you grew up, I guess, having an affinity towards art, but it wasn't until later in life that you discovered glass, right?
No, it's very late to glass. My students have a tremendous advantage. I really didn't discover glass until I was in grad school. I was in grad school at LSU in Baton Rouge studying ceramics. And then I went off to these summer programs and I saw glass being made for the first time. And it was love at first sight. I knew as soon as I saw it, that's what I was going to be doing. It had everything I loved. You know, it's a very physical process, and I've always been interested in athletics, and my tools are how I move with the glass. So it's a very physical process. It has the interaction with color is unparalleled, you know, in any other medium. And I'm a self-professed pyromaniac, so I love fire, and this is as close as you can do. You know, get to the fire and be involved with the making and the fire process.
Well, and this is great because you really do have a connection even with Center College, and so some of your students can come and see this too.
Yeah, my students are probably tired of seeing my work, but no, my students at Center College would not get to see the work displayed like this, which is what's so exceptional about doing a museum show. It's unlike a gallery show where you maybe have 12 or 14 pieces on pedestals, and the museum show is so nice because you can put out a lot more work, and they really go to all extremes to display it well.
Well, and this is your personal collection too, which is kind of different sometimes than other exhibits. This is all yours.
It is.
It's mine,
all
mine.
Mine. I've always kept my very best pieces from every series that I've done. I know the galleries don't like to hear that, and collectors, but I have the best, and you know, they're like my children, so I hoard them, and it's hard to let them out. So they are absolutely the best that I've made, I think. So.
Well, and it's called Bending Light, and that's definitely light going through. I mean, I can see the way that it's displayed here today. I mean, they are beautiful. They cast beautiful colors on the walls and the bowls, you know, underneath.
Oh, thank you. No, I mean, my whole life is studying color and the interaction of light and glass and color. And you know, in some instances we're transmitting light through pieces, creating refractions of color on the wall or below, as in the echo pieces, and then other situations we're reflecting light. So it's always a combination of reflecting and transmitting light. So thus the title Bending Light that we came up with. So.
That's a wonderful title. Well, I'm excited to walk around and study some of these pieces up close. They are marvelous.
Well, thank you. Thanks.
Thank
Enjoy
you so
them.
much.
You bet.
Artist Stephen Rolfe Powell not only creates his own art, but also trains others how to create their own glass pieces. As a teacher at Center College, he's been awarded Kentucky's Teacher of the Year in 1999 and 2000. In 2004, he was presented the Acorn Award by the Kentucky Council on Post-Secondary Education. He accepted in 2010 the Artist Award by the Governor's Award in Arts. Recently, in 2012, Powell was presented with the Distinguished Educator Award from the James Renwick Alliance in Washington, D.C. Well, the Headley Whitney Museum is also teaching others to create art, and today, we get a groovy local traveler lesson. Stay tuned for some tie-dye fun. It's all coming up after the break. Today, we're visiting a decorative arts museum founded by prominent jewelry designer George Headley. We learned more about their fascinating and diverse collection of jewels, artifacts, shells, books, miniatures, and more. This unique treasure has long been an icon of culture in Lexington and offers a myriad of ways for the community to get more involved with art.
I'm here today with Lauren Hunter-Smith, and she's the Assistant Director at the Headley Whitney Museum, and we're outside in your community tent.
Right, yeah, this is where we have a lot of our children's events during the summer because we can be a little bit messier out here than we normally are.
Well, yeah, you do a lot of community events. I mean, definitely people can come and take tours at the museum, but you also have lots of workshops and things for people to really get their hands dirty.
Right, we try and do at least one different thing a month. We just had our derby hat workshop, and coming up we have our tie-dye workshop, which we do 2 times a year, every year.
That's great. Well, and you have other things too. I know you've got like a life-size dachshund I saw.
Yes. So Ernie is an 18-foot-long dachshund puppet that's made in the style of a Chinese dragon that we're using as our 4th of July parade entry here in Lexington. And we're inviting any supporter of the Headley Whitney Museum to come join us in that parade. So it should be a really fun event.
Well, and I know the Chinese has kind of a close tie to Mr. Headley, but also to the dachshund, right?
Yeah, for George, Ernie was kind of his favorite jewelry model. It's one of my favorite George stories is George opened his jewelry store at the Hotel Bel Air, and to get people to come into his store, he would dress his dachshund Ernie up in all of his jewels and then have him walk around the pool. So you can imagine if you're laying out and you see this little dachshund just head to toe in jewelry, you're gonna wanna go into that store. So it's just a really indicative story of who George actually was.
Yeah, he sounds larger than life, kind of.
Definitely, absolutely.
Well, and actually, speaking of what George did and just kind of his larger than life jewelry and baubles and all those things, you also have Improbable Baubles and Probable Baubles.
Correct. Improbable Baubles is our largest community program that we do. Last year we had over 1,400 kids participate. What happens is I go to each classroom that's participating, I give them the history of George Headley, his bibelots, and then we have those kids build bibelots in the spirit of George Headley from recycled materials. And then we also have them write artist statements, which are the most adorable things you've ever seen in your life. And then they have like kind of the full artist experience. So they get to bring their pieces into the museum. We show them for 2 months. We have a huge kid-friendly opening reception for them. It's just a really, really fun event. And building from that event, because we got so much feedback from adults who wanted to participate, we've added Probable Baubles to our spring calendar, which offers the same opportunity to adults.
Yeah, that sounds like a lot of fun.
It's a lot of fun, and people just do things that you would never believe with plastic bottles and trash. It's just such a neat, upcycling way to see things.
Yeah, well, and you unleash their creativity.
Exactly.
Well, and we're going to unleash some creativity with these tie-dye shirts. Tell me what we're going to be doing here.
Well, what we're going to do is I'm going to show you how to do kind of our basic tie-dye patterns, which we'll do with rubber bands, or you can use zip ties if you have some mobility issues. And then I'll show you how we apply the dye to create these patterns.
I'm excited.
Great.
I'm gonna get I'm getting an apron or a shirt or something because
Yes,
I did wear
definitely a
white.
good call.
But I'm ready to dive in.
Let's do it.
Transforming plain white t-shirts into unique works of art is as much fun as it is creatively fulfilling. The mission of the Headley Whitney Museum is to enrich the life of the whole community by fostering knowledge, enjoyment, and appreciation of decorative arts. And these museum workshops do just that.
With a well-stocked gift shop, rotating exhibits, and community workshops, there's always something new to discover here at the Headley Whitney Museum. Make sure and add this Gem of the Bluegrass to your local travelers list.